We are back. We're all back. Welcome back to another new week of interesting art, and this one in particular caught my eye as usual, and there is much to discuss here. So welcome back, Artist Journal, April 17th, 2023, broadcasting to the world from Berlin, Germany. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. And it continues here. So welcome back. And yes, so you can recognize the artist. Anybody that's been watching this show for the last couple of weeks at least, you'd know this is Uxine. But this is a collaboration with Indio Robot. So let me just quickly show you here. So Indio Robot, and Indio Robot, did I bring it up? Yes. Indio Robot has put out a whole bunch of collaborations, this Renaissance Robots. So I'm not exactly sure. I assume, and I don't know, but there seems to be some AI here. This is strictly by Indio Robot. That kind of looks like an AI piece. I assume that Indio Robot is giving AI works to the artists, and then the artists kind of make it their own, right? So this is kind of one of the kind of promised lands, really, of AI, and we've been discussing this for months, really, this idea that it can provide a reference to artists. So what I assume happened here, and this is pure speculation on my part, is this work here underneath, without the sort of Uxine treatment and painting and computer, like this church, I suspect is AI, and as you can see in the top corner here, let's just open that big. I think, yeah, there we go. As you can see in the top corner here, to me that looks like AI, right? Like it's not super clear, but I suspect it's kind of got an AI feel to it. And so it looks like a collaboration where Uxine has been given that church, let's say, and then is told to run with it, basically, and then adds the Uxine treatment, the tubes, the flashing things, the hilarious kind of dripping window of light or whatever it is. Maybe it's a cord, who knows? And the cord's coming out of people's heads. The Uxine treatment. Interestingly, the dice here is also interesting. And then a little, I think you'd call that a homunculi, a little small guy there. And then facing, almost like Det. You remember that guy from the painting Det, facing the huge guy? And again, we see this, you know what this is called? I've been waiting to drop this for a long time. Significance perspective. So when you have, it goes all the way back to, it's like, the most basic of basic art historical ideas. And you can go back all the way to ancient Egypt, where the pharaoh is huge. The Narmer palette, we discussed the Narmer palette, where the pharaoh is huge and then the regular guy on the street is tiny. So therefore, significance perspective. The bigger you are, the more important you are. And here we see basically what could be interpreted as significance perspective here. So anyways, cool work. Really just kind of nice treatment here. And I'll tell you what I also really liked about this before we move on. So first of all, it was the overall just idea, because this is a kind of grail in my mind of sorts, this idea that ultimately it's actually going to be a massive compositional tool and help in a similar way to ChatGPT. If you just put in, if I put in a transcript of this show and say, make an article of the part where I'm talking about Uxine and whatever, you'll get something like a rough draft, but you cannot just publish that unless maybe I really, worked it over, like the raw AI people do. But in a similar way, it's almost like that's what could be used for a lot of digital painters, is all of a sudden it's sort of like a rough draft of a composition, and then you can kind of run away with it, similar idea. So anyways, that was just really interesting, because I'm not sure I've seen Uxine work in an obvious way with AI. I'm sure there's probably been experimentation, but not in an obvious way, seemingly obvious here. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there, if you know otherwise. I'll tell you what else I liked about this, though, was how it became a really a a digital work in a sense, like not just a representational work with this kind of screen imagery of the arrow going down outside of the screen here, outside of this like retro Mac. And you see it also with the happy face that is getting glitched out. A very nice, because imagine if that wasn't there, it would be really removing a layer of kind of excitement of a certain kind. So by breaking that border, that frame of the screen, and putting this kind of digital imagery outside the screen, kind of adds a levity to it. It adds like it just really adds to the piece. So anyways, cool work by Uxine and Indio Robot. Now I brought this up. So Patrick Jambon actually is a famous person in the Berlin art scene. And you can see why. He's instantly recognizable here. He's a performance artist who I believe, I'm not sure if he studied under Nam June Pak, if I'm pronouncing that right, or one of the people who was with Nam June Pak. So anyways, and that's going to come up, that's going to be important later in this show, but I did want to show this because he often has like these computers that hang from his torso, and here it is. And this just reminded me of Patrick Turbo, also known as Turbo Jambon. So anyways, hilarious performance artist. And you will see him, this is him, just a heads up on the Berlin art scene. Like this is, one night. These are like one night of what's going on in Berlin in the art scene. And so he is the guy he's the go-to as far as knowing what's going on. And if you go out in Berlin, you'll see him probably very soon because he goes pretty much out every night. So more Uxine. So this, I wasn't exactly sure what this meant, to be honest. This was hand-drawn, then Photoshop treated GIF, okay? And this GIF here, I used in Might Delete Later. Pocobelli made screens, printed, then turned into GIF again. So I think that means, I'm not exactly sure what that means to be because obviously I didn't make them, but maybe he was thinking the ideas that we're discussing here, or maybe he was just giving me a shout out. This is welcome to my life where I'm very over literal on everything, much to my girlfriend's disdain, I guess. So anyways, Pocobelli made screens, printed, then turned into GIF again. So the moral of the story here is Uxine started with hand-drawn, then Photoshop treated. So maybe that's how the skull got turned into the pixelation here. And made screens, then printed, I assume screen printed, then turned into GIF again. So anyways, it all looks great, and everybody wants a copy. And so interestingly, what I think happened here is Uxine made the drawing, then made these beautiful screen prints. I think this is what he's saying. He made these beautiful screen prints, and then from these screen prints, maybe took it back and turned it into a GIF, and maybe this GIF here was then brought into Photoshop and then digitalized, and then we end up with that, perhaps. So anyways, big shout out to Uxine. Thank you for the shout out, and it always looks awesome. It continues to look awesome, and it always does. So thank you for all the retweets over here and the likes. Really nice response here. And thank you to ArtSpace55 out of Korea and Jong Hyun, who invited me to this NFT energy exhibition. So anyways, an excuse to mint a work and to finish a work. And so I did. And this is Milky Way based off of Tintoretto's Origin of the Milky Way. Great title, hey, by Tintoretto. I mean, what's so strange about that, not to go on another tangent here, but if you look at, and people were asking me about art history lectures, and if you go to, if you want to find good art history lectures, I highly recommend Wondrium, which used to be the teaching company and then got turned into the Great Courses. You can even do a free trial here. They have excellent art history lectures. And what was I going to say about this? losing my train of thought here. Yeah, so we had Milky Way. Anyways, go to Wondrium if you're looking for art history lectures. We're late in the day here, so we're just going to continue. So big shout out to everybody who commented again. Thank you for the nice comments, Libro and DJ Kiro. Hilarious comment from Libro. Runetoon just commented interestingly on this idea of multiple accounts and what that might mean. I'm curious to know more about having multiple accounts, profiles, wallets. It's a phenomenon that only happens here. Traditional artists don't have the benefit of anonymity to do something like that. And I have to say, this whole anonymity thing, to me personally, I never related to it, and I'm totally cool if everybody else, but I always thought like as an artist, you're trying to make your name famous in a sense. Like that's not your main driving goal, but I mean, ultimately you don't want to be, as an artist, you don't want to be forgotten. Okay, right? So I always thought it was weird that people would use pseudonyms, but I mean, could be a billion reasons. I mean, I grew up in Canada and I live in Germany. Maybe if you live in other countries, maybe it's politically more sensitive. Maybe people can have all sorts of reasons. Could even have to do with just not, maybe you don't want your neighbor to know that you have crypto, right? So there could be all sorts of very good reasons for doing it. But it's funny to be, so that brings up that, and we've discussed that before. But in this ecosystem, it's not a difficult thing to pull off to have multiple wallets. I'm multi-chain and have two profiles on object, and that gives me some room to play with different bodies of work. But all roads lead back to my Twitter, where you can find it all. Okay, so basically there is a relationship and a way of tracing it. On the other hand, this kind of practice, especially when done covertly, can lead to some unsavory behavior. When I find out about the alt accounts of other artists, both emerging and well-established, it gives me some scammy hesitation. Thoughts? I think it really depends on a case-by-case. Like, say like Cap'n, I don't think of at all. I think it's kind of hilarious with the plants, right? He has plants and he's not too secretive about it. Like he does leave breadcrumbs, right? Where it's like lysergic treated plants by Cap'n Hayes. So a little bit of a clue there that, oh, is this Cap'n? Oh, it's the same style. I would find it more troubling or unsavory if all of a sudden I start making a secret account and then I start making Uxian style works and then, that sort of thing. Then it would be a little bit more troubling. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on the situation. Sometimes people can do it for fun, right? Out of kind of a, playing with the whole, Web3 kind of culture. And, this is part of the culture. So maybe it's also part of the art in a performative way, right? So I think the jury's out. It's case-by-case would be my current thoughts, but we can just keep thinking about that over time. And keep returning to that as we come across those cases. This is pretty cool. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Ed Marola, this is surreal. So this kind of came out late last week. Metallica, Room of Mirrors. And then you have an Eduardo Pulitzer or Ed Marola created video. And there's a YouTube, actually, and I would show it, but copyright police might not love it on YouTube. So anyways, you can find that. And look at how great that looks. All of it, and even this with Ed on the computer, and then really charming here. So anyways, in a purple Metallica. So anyways, I don't know how official this is, or like I assume it's pretty official because it looks like a pretty big deal. Metallica family, Metallica. So look at that, 6.2 million followers. So I think Dina Chang curated it. So anyways, just kind of interesting and cool. People are getting out there. And we're discussing this whole idea of educating your collectors and just anybody who's paying attention to you as an artist. It's worth our while. Again, I say this to myself more than anybody else. It's worth our while to educate people on what you're doing. And here Sabato has done it on the Echo the Dolphin Cataclysm series. I guess this is on VerseWorks, which I'm not super familiar with. An exhibition. I think we looked at this earlier. And so anyways, and this is just a cool Nintendo Glitch ROM series. And so he talks about how he discovered the game when he was 11. And this is the one part I'm going to highlight. It's a little long to go through the whole thing here, This is what I wanted to highlight. In 2015, I started experimenting. So this would be called data bending. 16-bit video game ROMs using Vinesauce, which is, if you go down this route, this is one of the more well-known, I think, corruptors. I think I downloaded that, which replaces bytes in the game file at designated intervals, right? So it'll give you the code, and then it'll say you can just start to put different letters in the code and this sort of thing. I was inspired by Let's Glitch It, Donia, aka Let's Glitch It, and Jordan Bortner's work on the Glitch Artists Collective, as well as Paul B. Davis and Corey Archangel's pioneering works hacking NES cartridges in the 2000s. And I remember seeing that when I went to the Whitney in its old location. I don't know if that was 2004 or 2007, but it was Corey Archangel's big solo show at the Whitney. And there was Super Mario clouds, and there's just clouds going across with some really loud kind of video game 8-bit kind of music. So anyways, you can see the whole thread on Sabato's feed there, but just kind of cool. I'm a big fan of doing this sort of thing because people want to read about, maybe you want to read about Sabato and what he's working on. So it's totally, and then all of a sudden you have all of a sudden he looks like an expert and he looks competent, and he's not, if he didn't do that, then so it just helps fill in the story a little bit. Nam June Pak, Nam June Pak, I think is how we pronounce this. So max capacity. While we're on glitch here, some glitch art academics still don't consider analog video glitch to be glitch art, even after all these years, even though Nam June Pak's work predates all digital glitch art. So that's an interesting analog video glitch, because it does feel like maybe a border case or something like that, because I guess the idea is that makes it glitch is if you have an old VHS cassette player and then it's playing and then you get the streaks across, that kind of, which we've all, I remember that when I was a kid, that could be considered glitch. And I guess for some people, this is not necessarily. So anyways, just kind of an interesting comment. We're back to Nam June Pak, okay? And maybe this is why my friend Turbo, or Patrick, has the computer on the front, because I looked up Nam June Pak's work. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And you see, you have all these retro TVs, this person made of TVs. And if you've been to museums in the last 10 years, if you've been to MoMA, you'll find the Nam June Pak kind of like I guess you'd call him a media artist. I actually don't know that much about Nam June Pak, but I'm familiar. He's not alive anymore. He died in 2006. I thought this was brilliant, though. This USA made of TVs. I think that that's great. So anyways, that is Nam June Pak. So to Max Capacity's point, Max Capacity is saying, well, look at Nam June Pak. And he's maybe he's seen as one of the original glitch people, perhaps. So anyways, FX Hash. So I've been kind of seeing this on the periphery, how it seems like FX Hash has created kind of a new kind of version, FX params, right? Like a new kind of way of creating generative art. Charcoal Seeds by Zancan seems to be the kind of its coming out party. Charcoal Seeds by Zancan, 500 pieces via FX params, and not cheap, 1,000 to 400 Tezos. Never co-created generative art with FX params before. No worries, here's everything you should know. So another kind of interesting feed here, including introducing what you see is what you get minting. So it sounds like maybe you need less and less code in order to make a generative art series, is sort of my impression here. And you see here, so I'm not exactly sure, I've never made generative art, but it looks pretty interesting, and they have all these parameters here that you can work with, and here it comes out. So anyways, just a heads up, and yeah, look at all that. And there seems to be something with tickets, and there seems to be stuff with the market making mechanics, or for lack of better words, the selling and the buying mechanics. And here's just an example of one of these works, Charcoal Seeds. So here is Zancan. And interestingly, you see this yellow kind of divert but join. Here it's on top of the black, but then you see it divert. So anyway, interesting series here. What is this called? Charcoal Seeds number 277. And I assume these are all minted out. Zancan has a huge following in the generative art, and you'll see often if Tezos shows up at like Art Basel, or here when they're at the Berlin Art Fair, they had the Zancan, I think. So anyways, Demon Ego with another work from the studio. Again, back to this idea of educating your audience on what you're up to here. And it's really kind of fun. And it looks great with this kind of great drawing table, or cutting table is actually what this looks like. And anyway, almost removed from the notebooks here, interestingly as well. So anyways, interesting work from Demon Ego. Good night with scissors. And I thought this was hilarious. So GloomTube makes a painting. I saw this on Instagram. And what does he paint? He paints a garbage bag, a trash bag I painted. So I think that's hilarious. So anyway, I hope to see more from GloomTube. I'm sure you do too. That's pretty cool. So anyways, GloomTube is on Instagram. So a beautiful work also came out since our last show, Signal by Hasdrubal Waffle. It's an edition of 8. And again, just all the stuff we kind of love about Hasdrubal Waffle is here. And we see the flashing in the background, and we see ultimately the subject here is someone who's giving signals, almost like at an airport or something like that. And it looks like the face is repeated here, and maybe the body, and then just the arms are different. Anyways, it looks beautiful as usual. Again, a super highly textured digital artwork, 2600 AD. And maybe that's an inside joke. As he likes to say, as he said on the Twitter Spaces last week, I like to leave Easter eggs there for people. So maybe that's what the 2600 AD is. So anyways, cool work. And I think Bridget, New York City, picked that up. And it was hilarious. And this is also another important thing that Hasdrubal mentioned on the last Twitter Spaces. He likes to play with the mechanics. So here he transfers 7 of the 8 to Islay. Okay, and then puts 1 up for auction. So kind of confounding his collectors, I'm sure. So then Bridget picks up for 26. Bridget, New York City picks 1 up. And then seeing what happens. So Yuri J puts in an offer for 15. Islay lists ones for 9,000. I think she gave away, because she only has two left. So they're little cakes, said Marola. So probably gave them away to all her friends. So beautiful. Here's another piece by Hasdrubal. So one of these, almost like the schizoanalysis pieces. This is called Psychogeography. And that reminds me of, who is the author that J.G. Ballard liked? Will Self. I think he talked about psychogeography. Anyway, I never read any Will Self. I think I tried a little bit. Anyways, I'm not sure if there's any relationship there. But it looks like, again, I feel like I can talk about this stuff a little bit more because it's just doodling, as Hasdrubal Waffle said earlier, Maylocks and everything. So anyway, just an interesting work here with a beautiful rainbow border here. Psychogeography, Hasdrubal Waffle. And do we have any sales? Just an auction and sold for 16 to Human Boy. Shout out to Human Boy. Datura with a beautiful work here. Panorama Sierra, shifting sands and mountainous terrains. Really on the edge of abstraction here, aren't we? And you gotta love the sky and everything. So just a really nice piece. I assume we could call this glitch. Sure looks like glitch to me. Let's see. There is no glitch in the hashtags here. But yeah, so anyways, Datura 1 of 1. It's a pretty good looking 1 of 1. So anyway, interesting. Sean-Luc with a new work. I don't think Sean-Luc has been putting out a ton on Object, at least. Prismatic Mishap, 115 frames. So this looks like a classic Sean-Luc work. And so playing with triangles and figures in a frame with kind of an abstract background. And the figures seem to be almost falling. So interesting, and the shape's falling from all directions here. So that's an edition of 11. Let's just see what happened here. Transferred perhaps to friends or previous collectors. There's Feels, Haiti, Rocket, and more. I brought up, so here is Sean-Luc, and outsider artist, self-called. Yeah, so February was the last time Sean-Luc put something out. New York-born, based outsider artist, 30 plus years of toiling. So there you have it. So there's Sean-Luc back on the scene. And Santiago, so I thought maybe these were the same person, I think, last episode. So it doesn't seem like they are, one would think. And they probably aren't. And some really nice, almost like Brian Eno-esque music here. Art for Interiors, almost a Brian Eno type subtitle, Palos. The music is awesome, so I guess that's NZFS. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. That's really nice music. Santiago, so they're selling for 20 each, and there are 21 left. Continuing on, Yuri J with a 1 of 1 abstract piece, one would think, with a lot of experimentation in it. So here it is. So pushing a lot of boundaries as usual. So just kind of interesting. Kind of one-of-a-kind digital artist here. Second Life, a 1 of 1, and let's see. And it was sent to Illusion. So maybe a commission, perhaps, or a friend. And here's Luciana Guerra, Luciana Guerra, who we've seen we just looked, I think, last show at the works on Super Rare, kind of like these big abstract works with a lot of color, kind of like this with a lot of color. So here is kind of almost like an inverted one with just, and then turned blue. And I think this is her only work on object. So Luciana Guerra, open edition for 5 Tezos each, 40 minted, and 14 days to go. So I think this just, when did this launch? April 2nd. Interesting. So 40 listed, or sold so far. Here's someone I don't think we've looked at before, Kazuhiro Ehara, Psy Edition Remix 1, and just kind of an interesting abstract here. Gotta love that. Let's see if we can get volume. No volume. So just, and like this kind of loose, very kind of, we're back to this painterliness that we've been kind of discussing. Interesting ratio here. It's almost like a smartphone. So kind of interesting here. Kazuhiro Ehara, they are on object. Let's look really quickly. And yeah, okay. So maybe that's an older work. Yeah, we've looked at some of this work here, and we looked at that. Okay, so maybe that's an older work or a newer work that is unminted. Anyway, continuing on, Coda Nakazono with a couple of continuums. So these continue to dazzle here. And here is another one. This one in particular I liked. It's just the pixelation. The pixelation just makes it incredibly beautiful and fun. I don't even know what it is about it. And it's kind of an interesting take on pixelation with little noise on top of the pixels. This kind of like little small pixels on the big pixels. Anyways, it's looking great. And I think this is sold out. There are offers. And yeah, people are just holding on to it. What did this sell for? Or did this not sell to anybody? Oh, Coda Nakazono is just holding on for right now on this beautiful work. So maybe you can still get it if you put it in an offer. Lorna Mills with a 1 of 1, State of Grace, so which looks like a tornado. And this is 600 Tezos. And just using the blue again, interestingly, and playing with nature again, interestingly. And almost like the tornado is almost throwing around like digital noise here. It's kind of an interesting kind of take on what she's doing, because all these little fragments here that the tornado throws out then get masked. Anyway, interesting title too, State of Grace. Kind of mysterious title there. And minted today. Osbren with an atomic bomb this time. We've seen the Game Boy, we've seen the Polaroid camera, and now we have an atomic bomb, disturbingly, somewhat, with a sticker on it. Looks like a little boy. So anyways, cool work there. This is another interesting work off of Twitter that I found. It's hard to actually hard to figure out what to make of this. I mean, because it's moving so fast, it's almost like blurry pixels there. So anyways, just kind of an interesting piece. This is Kim Assendorf. And so Digital expressionism. So interesting. Give Kim a follow here. There we go. Max Drecker with an interesting piece. So kind of a divergence from previous Max Drecker work. Kind of almost feels like a slightly deluxe paint background there, doesn't it? Glitch, program, GIF. And I didn't even recognize this because Max Drecker has such a, you recognize it here, such a distinct style. This work, I mean, it's some of the first work you also see on Tezos. You notice when you're starting to go through everybody's collections. So kind of a bit of a divergence here. I like it though, a lot. So cool work here. A different take on this, animated abstract idea. And here's another nice one, Lucas Ox, who I don't think I've ever seen. Making money to live, making art to survive. Let's look at the work as that loads up. So kind of a nice, soothing, kind of has a feel to it. Just a nice, soothing, easy, animated abstract work through a spectrum. Generative art, that's interesting. Video synthesis, glitch art. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So this is an open edition for $333. And have any sold? None sold yet. So that is interesting too. Max of 3. Probably a new artist. Newer? No, actually, has tons of work. Okay, so I haven't seen Lucas Ox for a while though. The work. So anyways, cool work. Very nice piece. Looks like part of a new series. And here is Feels. The one and only Feels. Feels times art. So again, you look at the amount of views that Feels gets, 173,000. You almost wonder if Feels has been on Twitter for years, probably, because Feels has like an amazing amount of followers. Oh, I thought it was 100,000. It's only 11,000, which is still a lot. But I mean, Feels, we saw the other day, got 500,000 on views on that work that we're showing. Augurs. So this is video and processing, video editing, encoding, whatnot. So a cool piece here. Let me just max. It's like a C. It's like a glitched out C, seemingly. So yeah, bird goes across. So interesting. That is for 36 Tezos, edition of 20. And so that is on secondary at 36. Let's just see what happens. Sold out for 3. And that was just yesterday. So very cool. And more glitch work. This is a still by LB. And I think LB has a few stills. Kind of has a bit of a cyborg sort of feel to it, doesn't it? So anyways, nice work from LB. And here are other stills that LB has been putting out. Cool idea, just put them out for 15 Tezos each, and then they slowly start to sell. Look at all these other ones gone. Remember Spiegel's Maskinen picked up, I think, one of these. So interesting. And here's some glitch video by Max Capacity. Transdimensional, she wrote. And that I just wanted to show because my mom is probably watching here. So show Angela Lansbury, who seems to have a mimetic life in the internet here. So anyways, I guess, yeah, so that is considered glitch. This is considered glitch. As far as I know, this is ROM corruption. So remember, Sabato had the thread on ROM corruption and Echo. This is the same thing with Haiti Rocket. I mean, similar genre, let's put it that way. Zombie boys playing with Nintendo games rather than Sega. And there it is. So a new glitch ROM from NES there from Haiti Rocket. Buy now for 1 Tezos 23. So pretty reasonable price there. Muji with a 1 of 1 for 40. So again, Muji uses D-Paint, also known as Deluxe Paint here. Pretty nice 1 of 1 again. So I think Muji put out another 1 of 1. It's called a Rainbow X. And yeah, there's a 1 of 1 just the other. Remember Cyber Holder? So interesting. Muji's getting into the 1 of 1s. So you see Deluxe Paint. It looks great. This also, speaking of looking great, look at the tower by Manidal. So this was stunning, I thought. And it seems like Manidal is getting more and more kind of elaborate as the series continues. The fire looks awesome in the tower, and of course the lightning is striking it. This is a tarot card, part of the Cat Tarot series. And then I just really like how the sky lights up a little bit and then interchanges with stars, and the stars disappear when the lightning shows up. It's just really, really nicely treated here. The 16th tarot card is a picture of ambition built on shaky foundations, and it symbolizes turmoil and devastation. It is a card that represents abrupt change and upheaval, usually frightening, life-altering, and frequently unavoidable. Change is never easy. Look at how small that file is to make. 121 by 170. So every pixel matters when you're working that small, and then upscaled by 10. So this I don't think is for sale yet. So very cool work, and a couple of cats there from Manadol. And here's one from Argyle, and who sent this to me? I think it was Varya, I think, sent this to me, thinking this looks like it would go on your show, and it sure does. Yeah, so just another interesting pixel artwork. Life 1 through 5. So kind of an arcade at the top. Interesting frame. Edition of 25, so it looks like this sold out. And yeah, what else? Yeah, so anyways, and selling for, sold for $25.55. This is an edition of 25, so selling for a pretty nice price. So people are all over this. Simulation. Interesting. It's an interesting work. I mean, you have a church, you have a skull with eyeballs coming out, and kind of a haunted Gothic setting here, Vanitas. So anyways, all interesting. Here's actually Argyle's page. So, I mean, I feel like I've seen this style before, and then I wonder to myself, is this the same artist? I see nothing wrong with this, though, say in this case. Tom Battle, with just kind of a fun work bus station. Again, always has this kind of 20th century feel. Feels like the source is like maybe pulps or something from the 40s and 50s. There's some, even the big suitcase waiting for a bus. So anyways, interesting work from Tom Battle. 8 Tezos, edition of 20. We saw this on Twitter, Cap'n. This beautiful work. It's an open edition for $333. 12 have been minted. This awesome work by Cap'n. So yeah, we were looking at this on Twitter, but we couldn't maximize it. So here it is big, and it looks wonderful. So, Memories of Zambala. And I'm seeing a lot of this vertical text these days, Hidden Land. So anyways, cool, available for another day and a half. Only 12 minted. I think Cap'n sells less with the open edition sometimes than the closed editions. So anyways, here's another work, Pinky Blue. So with a new work on exchange.art, which is Solana, with some cars floating through a pixelscape, through a pixelated sky. So just an interesting little loop here. Price of 0.1 Sol, open supply, 36 have sold. So for 3.6 sold so far, open supply. I wonder if that ever closes. Probably not, interestingly. Ellie Lowe with a new work, and let's just check the time here. So just like a fragment of some sort of sci-fi sort of situation, mysterious as ever from Ellie Lowe. Buy for 35 Tezos and edition of 11. So let's just see what that sold for. So the prices are going up. Remember, Ellie Lowe started at like 23 cents or something. Now it's $4.50. So congrats to Ellie Lowe for doing it, for working your way up. Françoise Gamma with music this time, interestingly. I don't know if I've ever seen music with Françoise Gamma's work. So a really short loop, like 3 or 4 seconds. Sound designed by Taya.wave. So not exactly sure. Maybe that's just an audio sample. Walk in Motion, 2009. So this was just minted, but maybe minting old work, as we've seen with some of the work that was on Foundation from Françoise Gamma. This is a cool work. Chick Studios, Can't Delete. I think we've all been there. Just a really interesting kind of GIF here. So illustrated with kind of like a spray paint type background or airbrush type background, and trying to throw out a JPEG in just kind of negative space. And the cursor is kind of turns into a hand and almost looks like an AI hand there. So anyways, wild work from Jake Studios for Tezos. Continuing on, Louis Osborne. I quite like this too. You could just kind of watch it over and over, flat as a pancake. And the happy face turns sad after getting flattened by the pancake maker. Looks like a crepe maker, perhaps. Really smoothly done, and kind of just captures everything that I think people like Louis Osborne for. Just this really smooth, kind of fun, animated illustration. Flat as a pancake. So you can buy it for relatively cheap, $17.90, but it's an edition of 50. So let's just look here. So these sold for 10 on primary. And they all sold within look at that, within 10 minutes, all 50 sold. So Louis Osborne continues to make big sales here. And this is Boo Boy, just a work in progress. My next for top 10 collectors on Space WOA. So I thought this was pretty interesting. Just a work in progress seeing Boo Boy in action here. So just kind of interesting and kind of soothing, actually, and kind of hangs well with Louis Osborne's style there. And continuing on, another illustration, Bendel Gasm, Head Strike, Digital Illustration 2023. I thought this was kind of funny. I saw this on Twitter. And just kind of a simple head knocking down some pins, bowling with that. So just kind of a quote unquote, I guess I say the word reservation, a fun illustration, available for a Tezos 50, and it took a few days to sell, but it is gone. I think once it got on Twitter, see this? So it just shows you can have a work, and then if nobody knows about it, you might not make the sales, and as soon as the word gets out, you get a few retweets, and it's gone within a few hours. So interesting. Flora Marquez with some more beautiful work. These colors. What is your comfort zone and why? An important question. You always got to be pushing yourself outside the comfort zone, as we all know. So anyways, my favorite parts of a lot of these are actually the noisiest, kind of the messiest parts here, as we see here in the hair, the mistakes, and the color is also awesome, and the subject matter is also really cool, as usual. So what is your comfort zone and why? Time to socialize. And this ladybug, I think, comes out. This looks like classic Flora Marquez. Available for 20, a one of one. Is the other available? This is also available. So let's see, and this one is gone. It's from April 15th. Learning to lead without dominating. So if you're looking for your Flora Marquez to round out your collection, you have some work available. So this is kind of cool too. Kind of mysterious too, almost. Learning to lead without dominating. So interesting piece. Dan W. with another work that I can't wrap my head around, Visitor. So a trademark, interesting composition. You see how the door is kind of half cut off and the lamp. I mean, this is actually classic Daniel W., interestingly, and the weird it's a weird composition, with the slightly off-center light switch and even this little thing. It's pretty trademark, actually. So Visitor, it almost looks like someone coming down an elevator, but maybe it's someone really tall coming in the darkness. Reminds you of the Haunted works. Anyway, edition of 16. There are 7 left at 6 Tezos. And Morlacos put this out. GM, I wonder if it was new, but I've never seen it before. I mean, it could be older. But there is a classic, beautiful work by Morlacos, probably made in Procreate. And you see even like the styling of the helicopter. Interestingly, not colored. The person inside is not colored. Interesting. So kind of a surreal work. I mean, here we have a castle. Here you have an army helicopter, a face in the sun, these kind of teddy bear outfits. So who knows what's going on? A wizard just kind of in the ground that's covering the car. Used NFTs. So anyways, interesting GM from Morlacos. The Myth with a new work, Cloak and Danielito. So this is quite beautiful. This also looks like Procreate, but I'm not positive about that because those clouds are a little sharper than usual. Shall we take a quick look up close here? Hard to say. Hard to say. I still think it's probably Procreate, but maybe it's Microsoft Paint. Anyways, nice work here. Kind of edgy with the gun and the cigarette and everything, and the classic colors, the pink hoodie here with the myth on it and everything. So anyways, and the puffer. The puffers seem to be coming in style, I think, because I'm seeing a lot of them. Cloak and Danielito, 1992. 4 Tezos, still available. Edition of 50, 11 left. Cool. Continuing on, Dan Control with continuing the animal series. Now we have a sparrow. So I think the background is some of my favorite stuff. You see the development here in the background. So cool work by Dan. How many are left here? 9 left at 6 Tezos. Sparrow Jack. I thought this was a poetic work by Wasteman Goldminovich, Family Feast. And you kind of see this, critique of what seems to be, looks like chickens that are in the form of like chicken nuggets or something, pieces of chicken here. And it looks like chicken head. So anyways, maybe a critique of eating meat or chicken from Wasteman Goldminovich. Continuing on, Moda MT, learn from your mistakes. So another kind of what I'd just call kind of a honest, again, that's, J.G. Ballard, the mark of the modern, one of the marks of the modern is honesty. And I think that's there's just something very raw about Moda MT's work. And you see it across, and here you just see it again. Learn from your mistakes. So simple, so an interesting portrait. There's something about it. Beautiful digital painting. Is that digital painting? Is that photography? Is this AI? Is this a combination? Hard to say. So anyways, Moda MT with a new work, and 10 have been minted, and they are available for 3 Tezos. And Louis with an interesting work, Waiting. And just kind of an interesting portrait with a guy that looks like kind of a bird for a head and a lot of texture there. Edition of 5, and that looks like it's sold out for $330. So congrats on that. Hasdrubal Waffle picked one up. So yeah, nice piece. And moving into AI, and this is Ilya Bliznets, if I'm pronouncing that right. And so again, combining AI and painting, and actually I think this is called the Galleris, in the Galleris office. So current bid, so someone has bid on it for 0.15, and so met the reserve here on Foundation. And so anyway, cool work as usual. So in the Galleris office, nice kind of big grand piece, interesting face over there and everything. As on Foundation, this was super interesting too. So this is Sky Goodman, and kind of looks like, it's almost like the artist at work, but this seems to be an AI image in itself. The hand, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it almost looks like there are too many fingers here and kind of doing something weird, and the paintbrush disappears. But it's almost like the AI artist in the studio making the AI sneakers. So anyways, cool work from Sky Goodman. I've been using Midjourney actually all weekend. It's pretty interesting. So I actually have a lot to say on that, but we'll save it for another episode. So Midjourney version 5, is it over-centering your compositions? So this is funny from ClownVamp. Describe your environments first before subjects and style set to 0. Stylize. And yeah, I'm a huge, go to the guide. If you're using Midjourney, go to the guide. I mean, one of the big things I'll say though, is if you're using just the Imagine prompt, for me, you're like, how are people getting such beautiful painterly works? As I reveal at least what I think I may have discovered. I mean, blend, where you take this painting, take this painting, take this image, blend them together, and you start to get stuff. So that is an important, so don't just use Imagine. Go to the guide and look at all the different ways. There's Remix. Use the different, that's, I think a lot of the secrets to AI art is getting beyond just, at least in Midjourney, some of the secrets I'm just discovering is get beyond Imagine, to state the obvious. So anyways, Cool comment, interesting comment from ClownVamp. Look at this beautiful work by Mr. Shapeless. So no centering, over-centering going on here. And here is a wanderer, del wanderer type figure looking at this almost what I want to call a hieroglyphic sky, sky of hieroglyphs. And yeah, so anyway, it's just a whole bunch of objects. It seems like almost weirdly like a portrait of the mind in its own way. What is his Node Runner? There's a game called Load Runner. Actually, I'm going to release a couple of works this week from that. But Node Runner, yeah, so maybe a reference to crypto somehow. Pretty nice piece, though. And finally, Marina Amadova with a new one, Fluorescence, and just an interesting portrait here, also AI. And I just like this one, AI-based Serenity collection developed with Photoshop. This is by Etkin for 3 Tezos. And I just like the feeling of this one. Kind of feels like spring and barbecues. And finally, What is Ayana back on the scene? AI and digital painting cover. So taking a bit of a different approach here with the paintbrush strokes on the AI work, and always just a nice contrast there. So that is out from What is Ayana, edition of 20. There are 10 left, so they are selling. And I just thought this was interesting to see. I thought Stedman had stopped minting, but really I just didn't see Ralph Steadman, but really I just hadn't seen everything that had been coming out. So lots had been coming out, but the hype that was there when Stedman started seems to have quieted down a little bit. So yeah, I mean, you see there's still a lot of works left. I mean, these are pretty large editions, but 200 for a Tezos. Yeah, what else do we see here? This one, I mean, of course, is going to be more popular with the Mickey Mouse. So anyways, kind of a mixed thing, but it's interesting to see how Stedman, when did he launch? Like 4 months ago? And now, so it's interesting to return. Here I was looking, 64 left, okay? And again, basically minting older physical works. So it's interesting. I think if Stedman, just to re-emphasize the point on physical versus digital NFTs, I think if Stedman had been making new digital works the whole way, I'm not sure it would be as quiet. So just kind of interesting to check back in. And Kate Mary art, we've looked at a lot of Kate Mary arts. I thought work on Instagram, and I thought this was, look at this. So you just see working with the oil pastels, I believe. And there's your headphones. Anyways, I thought this was just a really nice, simple composition. So I thought, let's show this one. And other work here, look at all that blue. So anyways, a really cool artist there, Kate Mary. And Jesse Mackison, I feel like maybe we've seen this one before. This person, I think it says Dallas, Texas, but I think this person, that's because that's where the art fair is. I think this person's out at LA, Jesse Mackinson, just another really cool artist. And look at this. Here's the black and white, kind of similar version. Really interesting artist. I think this is oil. But not too many details on that. So you see others here. So anyways, cool artists there. And that is your show, everyone. Thank you for watching. And until next time, take care.